Frankie Dio Dioguardi was born in 1917 on Forsyth Street on Manhattan's Lower East Side. He was also known as Frank Dioguardi, Frank SUTERA, and Whitey. From 1939 through the mid-1950s, he resided alternately on Rockaway Boulevard in South Ozone Park, on 2nd Avenue in Manhattan, on 86th Street in Jackson Heights, on West 86th Street in Manhattan, on 67th Street in Forest Hills, and on 93rd Street in Ozone Park. When he first moved to Florida around 1956, he initially resided at the Riverside Apartments in Miami. Later, he relocated to North Miami Beach. He was a younger brother of the infamous Johnny Dio, who was also known as Blackie, and had another brother named Tommy Dio. He, as well as his brothers, his father Dominic, an uncle, and a cousin, were all connected guys affiliated with the Lucchese family of Cosa Nostra. Frankie had a reputation as a bit of a loose cannon and hothead. He was known as an extremely active hoodlum who was open to any and all rackets able to turn a buck. Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Frankie Dio's known criminal activities included bookmaking, horses and sports, casino-style games, dice, roulette, etc., shylocking, vending machine rackets, extortion, strong-arm tactics, business infiltration, narcotics, heroin, receiving and fencing stolen goods, truck hijacking and cargo theft, and flim-flam scams, business frauds. Frankie migrated down to Miami Beach during the mid-1950s. He liked it so much that he and his wife ended up staying there permanently for the rest of his days. As a side note, his girlfriend liked it also, so much so that he put her up in a luxury apartment only blocks from his nightclub. Dioguardi alternately operated several restaurants and cocktail lounges over the years with various partners. He was also active in running jukebox and cigarette machine routes along the Collins Avenue Strip and vicinity, including the Little Napoli restaurant in Miami Beach. Frankie operated this place for several years. Angelo Palangi's restaurant in Miami. Dio was a partner of the famed Angelo Palangi from Jackson Heights, New York, in the Miami version of this New York City favorite. His uncle, Jimmy Doyle, was also a partner in this venture. Cyril's nightclub and the Skyview Lounge, both in Miami. Dio paid no rent while operating these night spots because the landlord, Jerry Cohen, owed him extensive gambling monies. Dio also used this locale to succor a wealthy businessman to invest over $60,000 in the night spot. Within months of his purchase, Dio had drained the place dry, busting out the place for over 60 large. The 5 O'Clock Club in Miami. He was alleged to hold a hidden interest. Casa Maria Ristorante, a Miami Beach pizzeria red sauce casual restaurant. La Rosa Restaurant on Sunny Isles Boulevard in Miami. He had an interest and was later bought out by a partner. Sunny Isles Cigarette Vending Company, a jukebox and cigarette coin machine route operation, untaxed cigarettes and skimming. During a 6-month period after first opening, Dio was quickly able to place approximately 40 machines around town, which scared members of the Cigarette Vendors Association, a trade group which Dio didn't belong. They were correct to fear that he would soon dominate the local marketplace because of his mob influence. Albert's Fisheries Company in Miami Beach, a wholesale shrimp distributor to motels, hotels, restaurants, and nightclubs in the Miami area. Joe Scootch and Indelicato and Dio were partners in this company. It should be noted that until Dioguardi moved to Florida from the 1930s through 1950s period, he, like his 2 brothers, held active ownership interests in many garment factories and other businesses. These included, from 1934 to 1935, Triboro Cigar Distributors. From 1935 to 1936, Yeast Supply Company. He was listed as a driver for his father Dominic's company. From 1936 to 1940, Roma Sportswear Company in Brooklyn, first as a partner, then as sole owner. From 1938 to 1940, Janelle Coat Manufacturing Company in the Lower East Side. He was listed as a part owner and operator. From 1941 to 1942, Moylan Coat Company Incorporated in Brooklyn. He was president and stockholder. From 1941 to 1944, Victory Sportswear Company in Manhattan. He was partners with his brothers John and Tommy. From 1951 to 1954, the Little Napoli restaurant and bar on West 57th Street in Manhattan. He held a silent partnership. Frankie Dio had an arrest record spanning 40 years, starting when he was 17 years old, and included arrests for homicide by gunshot, carrying a concealed weapon, a monkey wrench, liquor law violation, theft from interstate shipment, and more. Each of these arrests resulted in either a dismissal or suspended sentence. He never served a jail term. As a side note, the 1944 New Jersey bootleg case involved 21 defendants, including his brother Johnny Dio and Sedamo Big Sam Accardi. It also seems that during the 1940s era, Dioguardi was a principal in a very active truck hijack ring. He was tied to over 19 truck cargo thefts of mostly textiles and garment piece goods. He was also nabbed while fencing a stolen garment load to a jobber on Eldridge Street in his old neighborhood on the Lower East Side. In 1965, he had a narcotics conspiracy charge. He was tied into a huge 200-pound heroin cache seized in Miami. This is the case where he eventually fell and served a big jail term, 15 years. He served his term in Leavenworth FCI. In 1971, he subsequently fell again, being convicted in a mortgage kickback scheme. He received an additional 2-year term to run concurrent with his narcotics sentence. Additionally, through the years, both local and federal authorities linked Frankie Dio to the following. In 1958, he was linked to the bookie operation of convicted narcotics dealer Julius Johnny Flink, operating out of his Andy Hill bar in Miami. In 1959 and 1961, his good friend, known gambler Bernie Stein, ran a bookmaking ring in which Dioguardi was alleged to have an interest as either a partner or in bankrolling the operation. Frankie Dio was also alleged to operate a skin game at the North Dade Civic Club in partnership with several others. Dioguardi was also suspected of handling all labor union matters on behalf of his brother Johnny Dio in the greater Miami area. This provided him with unfettered access to several top Teamsters leaders, including Abe Gordon and George Baker, giving Frankie a lot of juice. It also seems he attempted to be active in Local 259, a catch-all union aimed at miscellaneous industries, including aluminum manufacturing, truck drivers, etc., and Teamsters Local 290 business manager Dave Fachette, a Dio minion. These union connections were complements of his brother Johnny, utilizing Frank as a point man of sorts. As far as usury rackets, in 1960, informants reported that Frankie Dio was a Shylock partner of Joe Scootch in Indelicato, a very close friend and Gambino soldier. Also in 1960, Miami informants revealed Frankie Dio was active in the fencing and trafficking of stolen goods and cargo, much as he did back in New York City. In 1961, Dio was said to be giving out large Shylock loans in partnership with Gambino Capo Stefano 14th Avenue Steve Armone. In 1962, Frankie and Genovese Power Anthony Tony GOBEL Ricci were said to be partners in pushing Shy loans. Being the brother of Johnny Dio did have its advantages. Frankie became friendly and associated with most of the better-known hoodlums in South Florida. These included Vincenzo Jimmy Doyle Plumeri, his uncle, a capo and frequent visitor to Dio's Little Napoli restaurant, which also happened to be a well-known mob hangout. Agostino Augie Amato, a Gambino family old-timer, loan shark, and vending machine operator. He had 2 sons also connected. He was said to be close personal friends with Santo Trafficante Jr. and Carlo Gambino himself. Johnny Connecticut Busso, a reputed Gambino soldier under Steve Armone. Vincent Jimmy Palmisano, a Gambino soldier and longtime Miami resident. Pasquale Patsy Erra, a top Genovese soldier handling South Florida for Trigger Mike Coppola. Erra was close to Dio. Joseph Joe Scootch Indelicato, a major loan shark, heistman, and notorious Mafia soldier, a close friend and off-partner of Frankie. Carmine Willie the Wop and Peter Mr. Bread Locascio, important Lucchese members and international narcotics merchants. Georgie Hooks Nobili, another Lower East Side-based Genovese hood and heroin dealer. Ettore Eddie Coco, a notorious family capo who spent much of his time in Florida. He would get life for shooting a black car wash employee who made the fatal mistake of disrespecting Coco. Henry Rubino, a known gambler, thrice convicted, California-based bookmaker and suspected Profaci member. He was a part-time resident of Miami where he owned several nightclubs, one of which he partnered with Frankie Dio, the Hoi Toi restaurant, a popular Chinese eatery. Dioguardi also co-owned the Gold Key Club and Albion Lounge, both in Miami. RUBINO would later be tied to heroin trafficking. Anthony SUTERA, Dio's brother-in-law, narcotics dealer, and close associate involved in many of his operations. Michael Trigger Mike Coppola, a top Genovese capo based in Miami and friend of Dio. ALFRED Freddie Redshirt FELICE, a New York City mafioso who resided in Miami, very active in most rackets and Dio associate. Benjamin Benny Roberts Robulato, a Genovese hoodlum, brother of the murdered Johnny Roberts, and wealthy Shylock active in Miami. Close friend of Frankie, owned the Dixie Dunbar restaurant in Hollywood. He was said to have built a fabulous home in the Hollywood section of Florida. Dioguardi was always known as the wild, unruly Dio brother. We believe that's the main reason why, although his uncle and both brothers were formally inducted members, that Frankie was either never offered or was never interested in getting a button. Nonetheless, being related to such mob heavyweights, Frankie was afforded a lot of respect anyway by most mob guys, and indeed was a close friend and partner of many, as can be seen from his list of associates. The FBI and local authorities officially carried Frank in their files as a Lucchese family associate, but as you can see, he was much more than a simple associate, wielding the power of a top button guy although not having the official rank. Frankie Dio Dioguardi died in 1976. He was only 59 years old. You can learn more about Frankie Dio's uncle, Jimmy Doyle Plumeri, and his associate, Joe Scootch Indelicato, right here in our Mob Fireside Chat library. And you can read more about his two brothers, Johnny Dio and Tommy Dio, as well as many of his associates on our Button Guys website at www.thenewyorkmafia.com. And please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel before you go. Thank you for watching. Until next time.